right. Good afternoon. Thanks for being out here. It's quite chilly. The weather has turned on us really quick, and obviously as a result, we had a tornado touchdown here on base early this morning. As you can see behind us, this storage hangar was the primary building that took the brunt of the damage. We had some issues at the gate as well, some power lines down, and a couple other buildings sustained some minor damage. The best takeaway is that no personnel were injured. We had no reported injuries. Everything happened before folks made it to work, so that was great news. Really proud of our first responders, our CE folks, security forces, and fire, who were out here immediately, well before anyone arrived, to get the site safe. We had some downed power lines, trees in the road. We ended up shutting down the gate, which I'm sure folks saw on the highways this morning. And so we worked really hard to get that taken care of and reopened within a few hours. So with that, I'm turn it over to Mr. Tillotson from the museum.
Good afternoon, everybody. I know there's already been some questions about the museum. The main exhibit part of the museum on the opposite side of the base is basically undamaged. There was no injury or anything. We're open for business on a normal schedule this morning, and we anticipate being open for business all through the weekend. The buildings behind us, the first three buildings here, are actually our restoration buildings. It's where we do repairs and refurbishment of aircraft to go on exhibit. And obviously the first one of those on your right took the brunt of the damage. In the category of really good news, although the damage to the external structure of the building is pretty severe, the aircraft inside are relatively undamaged. So there's a couple of small injuries to aircraft and artifacts inside, but basically everything inside the building survived. The aircraft on the tarmac behind me, or basically on the concrete behind me, are all things that were slated for disposal. So while they got bounced around a little bit and it looks pretty impressive, the answer is these were being scheduled for pickup by the Defense Logistics Agency for recycling and so forth. So quite frankly, we didn't lose anything of value to the Air Force out here. Our colleagues in Base Civil Engineers and Emergency Services were over here promptly this morning. And as Colonel Pond said, good news is we had no personnel injuries. We're all in good shape. CE is making sure that the two buildings we have that were generally unaffected are ready for continued use and occupancy. And then the building behind us we'll do work with the base to do a fuller assessment on. And that's pretty much all I have to say as a starting remark. So with that, let me turn it back over to Colonel Pound in Public Affairs for any of your questions.
Go ahead. Colonel, did the base sirens go off today? I know we had a lot of calls saying they didn't hear them going off.
We're still looking into that. I'm not 100% sure where they went off. We had some challenges with our notification system, that being the ad hoc, which sends out emails and text messages. But ultimately, we were able to get the message out. In addition to obviously what happened with the Weather Service pushing out the notices over phones. So yes, everyone was aware, and like I said, fortunately, it did hit housing a little bit over there, but it was very minor damage in privatized housing.
Okay. Good. The only other thing I'd ask you is, like, when those calls start coming to you, like you start getting the calls right away.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind at that point, and what do you have to do? I mean, is there any procedure you put into place right away?
Well, the first thing is obviously safety of personnel. And so here, with most of the housing being off base and it being wee hours of the morning, nobody's here. It's assessing whether anything was damaged over there, and then the next thing is obviously dealing with the morning commute and trying to figure out what that impact's going to be. So we had some challenges with that. Fortunately, we have another gate we're about to open in the mornings, and we were able to flex to open that up, although we did still have quite a bit of traffic. I do want to give a shout out to ODOT and the State Highway Patrol for jumping in and helping us out with traffic management this morning.
Obviously this hangar here is one of the most heavily damaged, but in total, do you guys have an estimate of how much this is going to cost and a timeline of when things will be repaired?
So the building behind you is probably going to take a while. So these are also historic hangars. In addition to being severely damaged, it's a historic hangar, so restoration will be more challenging. Most of the other facilities that sustain damage is pretty minor, so we expect within a few weeks we'll have those repaired. Don't know exactly what that's going to cost.
What is the population of personnel here, first in the museum and then also for the entire base?
So in this part of the museum, the total workforce that works in the three buildings behind me is about 17 full-time personnel and could be up to 20 volunteers, but most of the time there's only going to be 2 or 3 volunteers here. So it's actually a fairly sparse workforce. And again, it took place before our normal operating hours, so we were fine. I would hasten to note that we do get base notifications regardless of where we are. So I got base warnings even though I live in Centerville, so we were pretty aware that things were going on at the base, and that got us prepped and ready to go as we came in this morning.
And before you leave, can you tell us what is this aircraft behind you? What is it?
The aircraft behind me is an F-104 Starfighter. It's an interceptor aircraft, and basically it was a parts bird for the aircraft that actually sits in front of the museum on the post. We used the wings off of this and a couple of other things to upgrade that aircraft. This was scheduled for disposal, so it'll just go in. Same with the other aircraft that are out here.
Ma'am?
How many aircraft are being restored in these buildings now, and is this going to slow down any restoration process?
So the good news is the major work for restoration is actually done in the 2 buildings to your left, to your left. That's actually where the work is being done. This building here is principally for storage. Right now there's about 6 aircraft in there and 1 missile system. And there's a wing that belongs to a B-17 that belongs to the Smithsonian. And just in case they're watching this presser, that wing appears undamaged, so they'll be pleased to know that. But that's about it.
Sir?
Is it too early to get a monetary estimate of the damages?
I will defer to the base on the monetary estimate for the facilities. In terms of the aircraft themselves, depending on what we find in the one part of the building we haven't been able to get into, all damage appears to be minor, so it's basically just work and very small dollars. The facility is the major concern.
Right, and for the base, as I mentioned, we're still assessing the totality of the damage, but I think we were fairly lucky and just got a kind of a glancing blow. This obviously was the most damaged facility. A couple other buildings have some broken windows, some power lines and things like that we got to clean up, but nothing extensive.
Ma'am?
Just one other question. Obviously, minor damage. What is the impact of day-to-day operations at the base or even the museum?
So I'll let Mr. Tillotson talk to the museum, but no impact to daily operations of the base. All the facilities that were damaged are up and running with the exception of the building behind us.
And as far as the museum is concerned, the public-facing part of the museum, we were operational on normal schedule this morning. We'll stay operational. There were no damage over there, so it'll all be routine. The restoration team will spend a day or 2 probably reshuffling some artifacts because of the damage to the building once we get clearance from civil engineers. But other than that, their work schedule will pretty much continue because, as I indicated, the 2 buildings to your left are actually the ones we use principally for work. So we'll just have to move some storage location.
When were these built?
I'm sorry?
When were these built?
These were built at the beginning of World War II, and so they're that old. Actually, these buildings were the ones where the B-29s were modified for the atomic mission. Yeah, so they actually have some historic interest.
Are you going to be able to restore them back to what they look like?
Again, I'll defer to. This is a discussion that we will have with civil engineers once they do a more detailed structural assessment. Again, the doors are pretty obvious, but there are some structural issues on the left side of right side of the building as you're facing it that we're still assessing, or civil engineers is still assessing.
Yeah, the 22B.
Yeah.
What it looked like the guardhouse and the gates are okay. Was it just mostly because of the wires down?
Yeah, we had trees and wires down, and then also once you came in the base, there were wires down that would block ingress.
Okay.
So we had to shut the gate down. We lost power out there for a while. We had some hot electrical wires out, so we had to take a few hours to safe it.
One final question, anybody? Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate coming out.